costs you in free time, time away from your families. It costs you in peace in the grocery store, or in the church fellowship hall. I know. I know it costs you at work when people ask you about questions, or when people question your basic patriotism and honesty because of the weighty matters that you have to decide. And so I know that this is a sacrifice, and I know you're willing to do it because you love your community. And I just want to say thank you for that. Thank you for loving your community and serving in this way. There will be times, and there may have already been times, where you thought, why did I get myself into this? Part of the answer is, if it's not you that does it, someone else will. And they'll have less of a sense of calling, and they'll be less well situated to make decisions. We are here now at this place in time where you find people who are selected by county council to make these decisions. You're not here in a political role, although it feels like. You're here in a judicial capacity. You are judges without robes, tasked with applying state law and county ordinance. Next year, you'll start a hugely significant process, a comprehensive planning process, where you really get to envision what the council will look like, or the county will look like in years to come. That is no small thing. So important work is ahead. I know you care deeply for your community. My staff is here to try to help facilitate your work, help facilitate your decision making. And I am here if you need to talk to me at any point about the way things are working, about the efficiency of staff, or any questions you might have. Please feel free to reach out to me, and I will consider myself at your service in recognition of what you're doing. With that said, I know that y'all have business tonight, and I know that supper probably awaits, so I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions you might have, Mr. Ripper? Come on, you got the man one time. You just don't do this very often.
What do you feel is your connection to the Department of Transportation? You know, one of the biggest issues that comes before us is traffic and roadways, infrastructure. And are they accessible to the county or not?
You know, I would say in years gone by, not at all. In years gone by, we would almost, I recall as an anecdote, one year I was at the beach arguing on the phone with a DOT employee about a county road. The issue then was, okay, if the highway is here, the state highway is here, and the county road is here, and this stop sign gets knocked down, who's responsible for replacing that stop sign? We couldn't agree on that. Okay, so great progress has been made. The folks in the local office and our roads and bridges folks talk almost every week. I can tell you that Secretary Powell, the relatively new head of DOT, has been here and rode me around in the car asking for input and feedback. They call us anytime there's an issue, and we try to call them. So there's still work that can be done to improve it, but the relationship, just dealing with each other's professionals, has never been better.
That's good.
Now, does that help traffic at 5 p.m. on Highway 8? Not necessarily.
Mr. Ripper, you've kind of observed, especially through Jessica's role for the last couple of years on Planning Commission, had a lot of high turnover in those last 2 years. There's not a single person that we started with that's sitting at this table with us tonight. So, long-standing relationship here. From your perspective, have you seen any ways that the Planning Commission will continue to evolve in Pickens County and its role at all? Or do you feel like sometimes there's some overreach or some misunderstanding about where roles start and where they finish?
I think you speak to a very important issue. It's part of what motivated me to come here tonight. To just know that reaching out to me is a good thing. Because I won't know any specific details of any applications. As I said, you're judges without robes. So you wouldn't want to get information from one side or the other without hearing from everybody, together. That's what you should be doing. But you can reach out to me about more structural problems. But there is a general, because of the turnover, a general, I think, misunderstanding between staff and with the planning commission about where that line is. We've talked about it, and we're committed to more training, bringing in outside folks to talk with you all, so you're not just hearing our side of it. You're hearing experts from the Association of Counties, for example, to help continue your training and help us determine where that line is. The thought is not original with me, but I have one of my employees that tells me often, Ken, don't talk in pictures. Clear is kind. Clear is kind. And I think the wise woman that said that first would say that the best thing we can do is to make sure you all understand the rules and we all understand the rules, and then it will take everyone's anxiety down, and y'all can make the decisions that are which are important decisions. And I want to stress every decision that you have, the one you have tonight that comes in front of you, is an important decision, but nothing compares to the work you're going to do on that comprehensive plan. That's the vision of this county. And so we need to make sure that y'all all feel confident and secure in your positions as you move into that conversation in a few months. And I think it'll do us all great.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Mr. Roper. Thank you for being here. I'm looking at a chart that Sue's kind enough to send to me this week that shows the process of major subdivision approval process. We as the Planning Commission are only step 3. There's 5 more steps after us.
Yes, sir.
My concern, again, I'm new to this, but I'm not a big proponent of government bureaucracy and people rubber stamping things. What it appears to me is that our role is basically one just to get the ball rolling down the hill. And I'm concerned that what if one of these other 5 more steps isn't willing to step up and stop the ball from rolling down the hill, because it's going to get momentum the more it goes. I'm not casting any dispersions on anybody. I've never even met any of these people. They may be the finest, most reputable people in the world. So I'm not speaking to that. I'm just concerned about what our role is in the Planning Commission. And is it that limited that, again, we're just checking boxes? Okay, you meet this, you meet this, you meet this, but not somebody else's problem. I'm concerned about that as a newbie. That we would never even hear what else might have happened. We never know that the final plat submittal was reviewed by county department for accuracy. Well, what does that mean?
Right.
Okay. So I don't know if it's a transparency thing. I don't know. I mean, we already had a bit of an issue last week. I'm sure you're well aware of, with the county engineer basically saying that road studies that the UDSO required were not necessary. I don't agree with that, but it certainly gave me pause my very first meeting, like, wait a minute, so one individual can take it upon themselves to say, ignore this. I have a problem with that. I come into then why am I here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that's a lot to throw at you. I'm not sure how you would even answer that, but I'm just telling you a concern that I've had, and I've only been here for a month.
I think there's a couple of ways that I would respond to that. One is, what you're speaking to is what I've said before, and I'm talking picture here. I do that. If you don't know where the edges of the table are, you don't know when you're going to fall off, right? So if you don't know the limits of your authority, or how close or how far from you it is, you're going to feel that anxiety. So when you are worrying about the traffic study policy, part of the problem there is not knowing where the 4 corners of the table were, the 4 corners of your authority, and not wanting to leave something undone that was expected of you. And that's because you're diligent, you care, and so that led to that feeling you had last month. I would say part of the process that we need to go through part of the process that state law requires for continuing ed for planning commission members is going to make you know the edges of the table better and better over time. And the fact that you had to come in with a pretty controversial decision to make in your first meeting is something that I'll tell you the existing planning commission members told us. You have to figure out a way for them not to have to do that in their first meeting, but there wasn't a way. So that being said, you're right to feel the way you felt about that. Now, to go to more to the, I guess, a part of that matter, the traffic study policy. I've looked at it. I know our planning staff's looked at it. Our county engineers looked at it. Our county attorneys looked at it. And we pushed back on one thing you said, and that is you held up, you tilted the whole binder up and said, just disregard all of that. No. There's some language in the traffic study policy that creates that. Look at it as a staff. Sit your meeting and said, do we need to revisit the line, where the line is for us? Do we need to be taking a more rigid line? And if we do that, what happens to good faith applicants in the future? Things that we, the whole community may support. But we are still talking about that. And part of the conversation is, do we need to take this language back to county council? Because there is that ambiguity. So I think it's fair for you to raise the issue. It's a real issue. It's a real human, local government kind of issue. And we need to take it seriously. We need to work towards resolution. So thank you for raising it.
Thank you.
Thank you for the time.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Moving on. Everybody get a copy of the May 11th minute meeting. Meeting minutes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. Any revisions or problems that we can discuss?
Motion to approve.
I will second that motion. All those in favor to approve the minutes from the May 11th, 2026 meeting, raise your hand. Unanimous. Okay, moving into public comment. Sydney, was there anyone that signed up for this?
There was at least one. It was Mr. Josh Bedlin, that signed up for general public comment.
Okay, great. Josh, are you here?
Good evening. I just want to touch basically on some stuff that Ken talked about. From you that way, thank you for what y'all done in the last meeting. You are gonna have time in the future to prove yourself. But thank y'all. I know it's tough. You might have a different mindset, everything's going on in the realty link. But my personal opinion is before you bring 5,000 jobs in here and 18 warehouses, you got to build community first. Don't build the commercial first and then expect the community to get matched up to the area that just got put in. I'd like to touch, I know I went to county council meeting and talked about the engineer with Pickens County undermining y'all, what y'all said on y'all's 5-year, 20-year, 2-mile study. I think it's a BS that the guy from Realty Link can walk in here, go to the engineer can say, all you need is a 5-year study. That ain't what y'all said for. I see what you're saying with that book. If y'all say one thing and the county undermines you and says something else, that don't need to happen. That's, y'all are here to do what y'all are supposed to do. And if you set standards for that, you expect them to be met. But I think a lot of money talks when it comes to getting stuff done inside this place, just my personal opinion. And besides that, thank you. I think even, I'm not speaking on the guys that's gonna come after me and talk, or gals, but you got to build the infrastructure first before doing all this other stuff. And we just had a conversation on everything that a lot of us love doing growing up. Money comes in and takes over and destroys it. A prime example is It's called I used to call it Herman Honda Hills. It's now called the Cliffs. I can go up there and ride for 2 days straight, and enjoy that whole mountainside on a motorcycle. I can't even get 10 feet off the road these days. So, thank you.
That was the only speaker for thank you. All right, so I'm closing public comment, and we are moving into our action items tonight. We're starting with electing our planning commission officers. So for newbies, every June, yearly, we have our elections, that's in our bylaw book here. I would like to start off by nominating Jessica Massey for chair tonight. She's a partner in a lot of ways in this. We came in at the same time 2 years ago. Grown a lot, we've seen a lot, we have a lot of background information on everything that has happened the last 2 years. Largely played a role in developing a lot of the updates that you see in our new DSO that we will continue to work on over the next year. We've seen what it takes from all aspects to step up in this leadership role, and I think Jessica would be a great addition to that.
I would nominate Peter Greenberger as chair.
They don't need seconds.
I don't think a second's required.
Any discussion on that one?
No.
Walk me through how this works. We've got two
Typically-
nominations on the table.
Typically, we do, I would say that we need to go with Kelsey's nomination first, see if she gets a second. If she gets a second, then go for a vote. And then if that vote fails, then we take your nomination
Okay.
with Peter.
I second your nomination.
All those in favor for appointing Jessica Massey as chair, raise your hand. All those opposed?
So I guess I need a second for mine.
Second.
All those in favor of appointing Peter as chair, raise your hand. All those opposed? Okay, that motion carries for Peter to be our chair. Moving on to vice chair, is this where Peter takes over now?
Yes.
Okay, so we need to nominate a vice chair. Any nominations for vice chair?
I'd like to nominate Jessica.
She said Jessica.
Yes. You have a second for that?
Second.
Okay. Any other nominations? Okay, all in favor? Unanimous? Thank you.
Next is secretary. If you are going to nominate staff, we say, please say staff and not a specific person, because there are times where I will not be here, so it'll be somebody else in planning staff. If it is going to be planning staff, it's remaining as secretary.
I would like to nominate staff as secretary.
I second. Any further discussion about that? All in favor? It's unanimous, thank you.
And those are all.
Yeah, that covers it. Okay, moving on, we have one application tonight, as I understand it. And that's application number SD 26-002, subdivision development known as Prosperity Grove. And the applicant in this case is Mr. Jack Carson. Is he here tonight? Yes. Would you like to come forward and present your project to us, please? Thank you.
My name is Jack Parson with PRB Homes, and I'm actually going to let Josh Baker do most of the presentation.
Good afternoon, Planning Commission. I'm Josh Baker with Gray Engineering, and I'm representing the developer on a development called Frustrated Road. Proposing a 74-lot single-family residential subdivision on approximately 31.50 acres located on the north of Pendleton Road. The project is designed as an open space subdivision within the community center development area. Under the Pickens County UDO, development area permits a minimum lot size of 5,000 square foot, or at least 30% open space. Proposed development exceeds these numbers by having a minimum lot size of just over 7,000 square foot and approximately 9.73 acres of open space, excluding detention ponds, which equates to roughly around 30.82% of the overall site. We are proposing sidewalks throughout the development along one side of the road, as well as 4 separate access points to open space areas to ensure residents can use community amenities. We have confirmed that water, sewer, and electric services are adequately available and have capacity to serve the proposed development. North of Pendleton is owned and maintained by SCDOT. We coordinated with SCDOT regarding the proposed subdivision entrance, and they indicated no preliminary concerns with the proposed access location. We are prepared to satisfy all DOT comments and requirements necessary to obtain a special permit for the entrance. In addition, we're proposing 2 stormwater detention ponds on site and will fully comply with all SCDS stormwater detention requirements to ensure post-development runoff is properly controlled. Appreciate y'all's consideration.
Anyone have any questions?
She had a hard time hearing.
I couldn't hear what anything he said. You weren't loud enough in your voice, you talking that way. I'm old, I can't hear good. I didn't hear hardly anything you said.
I think that's one of the shortcomings of this room, and that might be something that we need to work on, is to try to get some audio that would capture the sound there and then project it that way.
Or have them facing this way, so have the podium there facing this way, so. Yeah, I don't know, I didn't hear a word he
They're
said.
supposed to be addressing us, though, man. That's the premise.
I know, but if it's affecting me, I would like to hear what they're saying.
Right, and I don't think there's a lot that we can do about that right at this moment, but I have heard other people make the same comment, so that's something that Mr. Roper was here earlier, and that's a really good example of something that he could help us with, and we should communicate with him about that. So,
I mean, I agree with addressing you, but if it's affecting me, I need to hear what he's saying.
Chair, I would recommend that we're not in public comment right now.
Okay.
and that's true. So, anyone on commission have questions?
I have a question that
It really wasn't
has to do
anything.
with the open space. So, what commitments do you make regarding the use of the open space in the community over time? Is that part of your plan, or are you sort of just leaving it's open space for now? You may want to use it as a playground, or you might want to use it as a picnic area.
Sure. We don't have any solid plans right now. We normally try to kind of see how the development goes. Our division president is very pro on trying to do, whether it's a dog park, walking trails, stuff like that. Ultimately, once we get into the grading plans, we kind of see what lays out best where if this area is flat, maybe we'll put in, top lot, something like that. Or dog park if there's a little bit more parking or something like that. So the reason we don't call them out specifically is not because we're not intending to do it, we just don't exactly know where we lay out yet, if that makes sense.
Does.
So we could, in theory, we could put that, okay, we plan to have, a trail where if, we can do it on the backside, if there is, say, a kiddie park, like a kiddie park in the front, but, maybe a top lot there, if we got room in the mailbox. I'm sorry, we just didn't have exactly the layout yet.
Yeah, I was just curious. I'm one of the new people.
Oh, please, no, that helps us kind of understand the thought process for breakfast.
Are you gonna be spec homes or build to suit?
Probably a little bit of both. Typically, we'll try to do more build a suit. I want to say it's 60-40-ish, but certainly not all spec homes.
So if it's built to suit, the designs will be different than, potentially different than the ones that were included in the packet. Is that correct?
Different elevations, yes, sir. So it'll be the same floor plans, just different elevations, whether it's, some of them have a front porch, some of them have an offset at the side, different windows. So different, but same floor plan. Yes, sir.
Okay. So
Where are their floor plans? I haven't seen.
that was in the packet that was posted online.
They have the different models and everything.
Online.
Yeah, well, that was just omitted, I think.
So, as discussed, the mail packets are just what is required to be sent to planning commission. Anything extra is posted online.
I didn't know that. I didn't see those elevations and plans, so.
So it's,
I have them right here if you guys want to look at it.
we'll typically try to restrict the exact same house side by side, certainly restrict the same colors, just so there is continuity, but also doesn't look like the exact same house side by side.
Do you have a sense of what the average cost of the house will be? Just ballpark.
That's hard to say. It's, DRB is typically not a race to the bottom. We're not gonna be your entry-level home. We're not gonna compete against the other builders that are maybe on first-time home buyers. We're gonna typically cater to kind of the second home buyer or step up. So, I mean, if I said 4 or 5, I don't think I'd be out of line, but I don't have a pricing structure yet.
Can you tell me what you're anticipating the setbacks to be on these lots between homes?
Within the open space, there is no setback minimum. We're anticipating probably, what,
So let's see, at minimum, there'll be 7 feet side setbacks, I believe.
14 foot.
Well, that's what one, I know there's not a requirement, which is one of the problems I have with this, if it's not even requiring that. But if you are anticipating you're gonna have about a 7-foot minimum setback, there are some charts in here that would meet. So, I certainly would prefer 7 foot over 2 feet.
Okay. And for reference, these are what you're seeing is our 40-foot product. So it ranges anywhere from 36 to 40 and a half, I believe, wide, that's the width of it. And these lots are minimum 52 feet wide. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any other questions? Any other comments?
I'll just add, that we're obviously not some out of town developer. I was born and raised in Greenville. Certainly not Pickens, but close enough. So I've seen the growth. My kids are raised here, they're born here. So we're not just some kind of in and out, because I know I hear that a lot of times. I get attacked on Facebook as a big bad developer, but so we take a lot of pride in trying to put together something that we feel could be a decent plan. And I'm not just saying that. My wife's got a company called Prosperity Sweets. It's a cookie company, and this would be Prosperity Grove. So I get the luxury of kind of bending some of that. So it's not just some, it means something to us. And I'm not just saying that because it's right there for it.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Anyone like to make a motion?
We do have those signed up to speak again.
Oh, okay.
Do we have a motion on the table?
No. So the first one is Joanne Palmer.
Members of County Council, I would like to address the proposal of a 74 home development on Norfolk County. I have lived at 118 Skyview Circle, right behind this development to be, for the past 40 years. When I purchased my home, my son was 3 years old and my daughter was only 6 months old. Today, my son is 43 and has moved away, while my daughter, son-in-law, and my 2 grandsons, ages 13 and 8, live just around the corner from me on Skyview Circle. One of the main reasons I chose to live here was because of the open land and natural beauty behind my property. My family and many others in the community have enjoyed this area for decades. My grandsons ride their 4-wheelers on the trail where this subdivision is now proposed, and many residents, including myself, ride horses throughout these same trails. It is difficult to watch this land be sold and developed. It often feels as though residents who have invested their lives in this community have little say in the future of the area. While I understand that development may not be stopped entirely, I believe County Council does have a responsibility to ensure that growth is balanced with the needs of existing residents and the preservation of our community's character. I respectfully request following considerations: reduce proposed development from 74 homes to approximately 50 homes, to lessen the impact on neighboring properties and local infrastructure, require a minimum of 50-foot buffer between the development and existing homes, require the installation of a privacy fence along the rear boundary of that development, require the developer to plant native hardwood trees such as oak trees to help preserve the natural landscape and provide long-term screening, protect the wildlife habitat in the area, including deer, turkeys, turtles, and other native species that currently inhabit that property, preserve the eastern hemlock that is 80 years old, Clemson University, located near Anton and North Old Pendleton Road, which is at via 100 years old, to be stated. Growth is inevitable, but it should be done thoughtfully and responsibly. I ask that you take into consider residents who have called this area home for decades and work with the developer to reduce the impact on our community, our families, and the natural environment that makes this area special. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
We have one more signed up, Jordan Paulina.
Hello. I'm actually really glad you guys kept the map up, and I didn't expect the developers to be here, so thank you. I am here to speak against an opposition to this. If you look at the map, that lower left corner, for the guys here, I want to point to this one. This is my home, okay? You can see that there are 3 houses in the span of my backyard, right up against my property line. My name is Jordan Paulina. This is the first public hearing I have ever attended. So you have to assume that this issue is pretty important to bring me here tonight. I'm here to speak against the proposed development plan for prosperity growth. It significantly impacts my way of life, as well as my neighbors, my friends, and my family members who still live in this area. I was lucky enough to be raised in that house for 35 years, and my mom has lived there for 39. I spent most of my 20s living out of the state, but I recently moved back into that childhood home with my husband and my 2 children, 7 and 2. And one of the biggest reasons that I came back was to give my children a childhood similar to the one I enjoyed. I look forward to raising them in a safe neighborhood with large yards, access to the woods where they can ride their dirt bikes and 4-wheelers, having bonfires with our friends and our families in our backyard, or just stepping out onto the back deck and looking at the stars at night. Those are the qualities that brought me back here to South Carolina, back to my childhood home, and those are now in jeopardy. And you can see my voice is shaking. According to this development map, that property is heavily impacting my property, as well as some on the other side of North Old Pendleton, where they have those 3 residential lots directly bordering the entire length of my backyard. If this is approved, those woods that I grew up exploring would be replaced with backyards and privacy fences. The trails that I traveled throughout my youth would be gone. Beyond the impact of the residents, this development would also have a significant impact on the local wildlife. The peaceful nights and the clear view of the stars would be replaced with 74 homes instead, and the lights that come from that subdivision. Activities that are common and appropriate for a rural area, such as target shooting in our backyard, which we do, hunting those same woods, would no longer be possible in the same way. Beyond my personal concerns, consider the broader impacts on our community. First, the traffic on North Old Pendleton will increase significantly. Second, this development will place additional strain on our local recycling center, which is heavily used already by our immediate area and the surrounding. Just this last December, they closed down the brown goods all through the holidays, so around 2 weeks, because they could not keep up with the demand through that holiday season. Adding 74 new homes would bring approximately 800 extra bags of garbage each month to that recycling center. And that's not considering cardboard, plastics, appliances, yard waste, or any of those other recyclable materials. If this development moves forward, I respectfully request that the number of homes be reduced significantly and that a substantial wooded buffer be preserved between the new subdivision and all of us existing residences. So that when we look out beyond our yards, that we can still see the wilderness that we all love rather than houses and chaos. Many of us chose to live in this area because we value privacy, open spaces, wildlife, and the sense of freedom. We're not asking to stop progress. We're just asking that progress be planned responsibly and with the consideration for the families that already live in the area. Thank you for your time.
So as of right now, there's no buffer requirements. Correct?
That doesn't mean that we can't take them.
Yeah, on that side of the development.
Question for staff. If I read your report correctly, your conclusion is project complies with the ordinance.
It's largely consistent with the ESF, yes.
For an open space subdivision, open space doesn't have to be contiguous around the perimeter. They can choose where their open space is.
So the only spot that has to be contiguous is against other open space subdivisions.
So there are no other open space subdivisions there, right? So
Havenwood, that was previously approved, is up here, which they noted that the is contiguous with the neighboring developments.
Which side is Havenwood on?
It's on the top right.
that's Azure Road. Have they approved permits? Are they in the stage of
They are in preliminary plat. They have not received approval.
So if they don't receive approval, then basically this open space off that open space.
If Havenwood is approved and has gone forth, if this gets approved, we would say Havenwood it hasn't gone 2 years without it being started, so they still have 2 years to get going and get their preliminary plat approved. We would still require them to have the contiguous open space until the Havenwood project either gets denied or the land use approval expires.
Okay, so that doesn't happen. Can this change with their open spaces being showcased tonight?
That part has to stay contiguous with the neighboring subdivision.
So we're basing it off, there's potential development right there, and we're not sure it's gonna go through, but because of that application being first, this open space is,
A portion of their open space has to be contiguous with,
yeah, I get that part, I'm just making sure I understand like the series of events.
at some point, some of this open space could potentially change, but they have to have open space contiguous with the neighboring development.
And detention ponds and retention ponds are allowed to be in that open space.
So those are not in the calculation for open space.
Because they mentioned that it wasn't included in the 30.82%.
So detention ponds are not considered part of the open space?
No.
So do the calculations that they presented, the open space there,
The calculations stated that it was not including detention ponds.
And Havenwood's been previously approved, but to your knowledge, they haven't started any work on it. Is that-
So they cannot do any land disturbance until they receive a preliminary plat. They have applied for preliminary plat, but they have not gotten any approval.
And how much, right, how much more time do they have to accomplish that?
They were approved last year, I believe September-ish, don't hold me to September. It was somewhere around that time frame, and so they have 2 years after land use approval to get their preliminary plat.
is it allowed or appropriate for us to ask the developer if they'd be willing to consider eliminating a few of these lots that are butting right up against that existing property and extending that green space all the way down to Anton Drive instead of stopping? Is that what you're like asking if that's even possible?
You can, you can apply conditions upon approval. If you want buffering, you can say that you want buffering. That's a discussion that you can have.
So could we ask
Is
you,
that something y'all would
Yes,
consider?
I'm sorry, I didn't want to come off unannounced.
okay, have you considered other layouts that would provide, or is it feasible to have a different layout to provide for your buffering along the river?
So we haven't necessarily gone to the route of completely trying to revise it. That said, we certainly understand where Ms. Paulina, excuse me. I get it. I think that we've probably got room. We've got some relatively deep lots, as long as we can still keep the minimum square footage on there, to require the lots. I think we can get the, 10, 15 foot undisturbed buffer, maybe 20 foot.
What's our smallest buffer size? I think we're 20 or 25 feet?
So for which one, there's 6 classes,
Right.
and then most of them are 25 feet wide.
Right. Yeah, as they get bigger, they get less dense. So,
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out if there's a way to make this more of a win-win situation instead of nowhere else.
Sure. If we buffer, I'm wondering if it would be more dense if we actually plant back there as opposed to a true undisturbed 20. If 20, I guess I defer to Josh if 25 would work to lay it out, but in my mind, I'm thinking plantings may buffer it better, but that's certainly my opinion. So, 20, if 25 works, 25 foot undisturbed buffer, we'll just keep the trees there and limit our limits of disturbance where we can actually put the backyards and bring it to.
Yeah, I would kind of go off what Chad was saying there is, an undisturbed buffer with enhancement of plantings is probably what I would recommend, just because you have hardwoods that are still up, plus you have evergreens or whatever, because require.
So that's something where you would retain title to that strip of land?
Yes.
So that the lot owner couldn't come in and chop the trees down?
Yes, we would limit the lot, and then that would just go into the open space and be owned and maintained by the, well, not maintained, owned by the association. We could put, we could put restrictions there, that it's not to be maintained.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how, I mean, assuming that those lots, 3, 4 lots there, you know, are sold to individuals, there would have to be something in that contract with them that would prevent them from going in there and mowing all that stuff down. Of course, I guess their lot line wouldn't go that far.
Right, the lot line was over 20 years.
So that makes sense.
And we're talking about 8, 9, and 10.
This is,
Yeah, so that refers to the 3 that the property owner had most concern about.
so, forgive me, a lot of times we find that a privacy fence gets the job done. It doesn't sound like that you would prefer that. So,
Yeah, I would like to see wooded area. Again, that's what I grew up with. That's what I want to maintain for my family as I raise my children.
so, I'm sorry.
And there is, you know, 8, 9, and 10, you know, do create a particular, you know, circumstance that really isn't typical of the rest of the community. So it is kind of an area to me that's kind of deserves special consideration because a lot of the other lots are up against open space for hundreds of feet, and there's plenty of woods, and the rest of them are butting onto the streets, new streets, et cetera. But I think this particular homeowner has a valid point that that's kind of, you know, unique to her particular property, and I would feel more comfortable if there was some way that we could provide some relief there in relation to what currently going on.
Yes, we'd be happy to have that if it's the same condition. I'm not sure the exact process of the firm, but we could certainly make that work, yes, sir.
And the trails that you intend to install in the development would be accessible to the public, or would they be accessible only to these owners in this development?
That's tough, because I have to draft CCOs. That's relevant. So it's for the enjoyment of this development, but there's no way you could restrict it if somebody else wanted to come in. It wouldn't be gated or anything like that. It would be designed and maintained for the enjoyment of these individuals, but, well, I guess we wouldn't have any parking, so it'd be difficult to say it's open for the public.
Are you gonna have a homeowners association?
Yes, sir.
So the homeowners will be paying for the cost of maintenance of the trail ultimately, so it's there for you.
Yes, sir. That's right.
How much space is there between lot 23 and your border line here? How many feet is that?
You're probably looking at around 100 foot.
100 foot. Seems like it'd be relatively needed for here. For the lot space to match.
Yeah, there's only between 9 and 10. I'm reading it right, it's really small print. It's only 151 feet, 151.7 between lots 9 and 10. So, you know, if you reduce that all the way down by, you know, as much as 100 feet, now you've only got 50 foot. That's not much of a lot left at that point. Right. But if you were saying like if you reduce it by, let's say 25,
Would that even work for your lot size?
it gets closer to their typical lot size, 7,540 square foot is 52 by 145. Am I reading that right? 145.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, typical is 140. Thank you, 140. Around that area is 153. Okay, we can make probably 20 foot buffer work, but once you push past the 20 foot buffer,
unless we reduce the front setback. We're not asking that, that just, the 40-foot front setback, just for the people on the front yards, is nice, but that's the only reason we're pushing it back.
We do that on just these 3 lots. If we were, let's say, increase it to 25 foot on the buffer, and they gave you another 5 foot to get closer to the street, are we?
So for standards, the 40-foot setback is a standard, they'll have to go to Board of Appeals.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but they can change the plat post-approval, right? I mean, so,
This is just a concept plan.
so,
So whenever they start looking further into it, yes, it's gonna change.
right, so we're approving the number of units really more so than the actual layout plan per se. In all reality, right? Because when they're going in there, the topo might shift a little bit where you need to move things around, the retention pond needs to shift over 20 feet, something like that, right? So, I mean, mathematically speaking, just because we say that you're not going to do that there, that doesn't mean it's not going to shift it somewhere else. I think that's the other thing to consider.
But logistically speaking, then if we were to approve it as is, there's nothing to guarantee us that they would ever make these other changes.
So we can make them a condition though, I believe, right? Yeah. So that the buffer is a condition of approval for these 3 lots if we so choose, or if there's others that, we feel need to be added into that, we could potentially do that.
Your summary plat here says that your roads are updated to Lawrence County standards. Are you looking to update your road infrastructure to Pickens County standards and turn those roads over? Make sure you're not counting it.
On the note of the walking trails, this is me asking for help in understanding something. Those ravines are substantial. If you're trying to run walking trails through there, how do you manage safety around those very, very deep, numerous ravines?
We would typically try not to cross the ravines. So we may have a trail that comes out at, say, the cul-de-sac and kind of goes around a little bit. Looping it may prove to be difficult to go around the pond on the west. So you're right, we would typically try to avoid ravines. Just not to, because we don't want to cut a trail just because we don't want to impact any wetlands or anything like that.
And that cuts away a lot of your space. The contour intervals weren't clear. It wasn't until I got out there and saw just how deep those were. Gotcha.
Would you be looking to put your open space in conservation?
So in Article 5, it says that it has to be in a conservation easement.
All of the open space. And then the association just maintains it. So I should know that.
No, you're fine.
So, and you're the engineer, 20 feet you say is feasible?
Yeah, only 25 is feasible.
The 25, which is our standard with the rest of our buffers, would be a struggle.
It's going to start pushing in with the setbacks.
What's the typical depth of the floor plans that you presented? You've got quite a few of them,
So typically we'll go 75 to 80 on just the homes. Normally we like to have, minimum 20-foot backyard. Like to have a 30, so 30, 80, 110 is typical of the pad size. Obviously we'd like to have more if we can, with a flattened backyard. Pad size, I think 110 is about as low as we'd like to go. Oh, lot size, so 75 to 80.
okay.
Oh. I already figured it out.
Any other questions or
So just the
comments?
20-foot line for lots 8, 9, and 10 would just be a straight line up to the open space? So, for example, lot 10 would have sort of an odd-shaped backyard.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So it would be parallel to that 49 east, 300.45, and the buffer would be, parallel to that lot line.
Yeah, we just
Yeah.
so we just offset that lot line.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? These two gentlemen? Okay, I think we've got all our questions answered. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hi, I'm sorry. I just wanted to chime in one more time after these gentlemen had an opportunity to talk, and I greatly appreciate you guys seeing where I'm coming from with those 3 lots butting up against our property line. Thank you for being willing to make some changes as well. And this is one thing that I mentioned in my speech was reducing the number of homes that you guys are proposing in this development. I don't know if that's an option. I know that that's kind of why we're here, right? If you're looking at this map, you can see the sheer size of this subdivision compared to our existing lots. We each have nice yards. There's 1 home on each one of those lots to the left. And you can see how many homes are being crammed in the span of those lots. I also think it's important to note, because you're looking at a 2D picture, and it's not satellite view, that entire development that they're proposing is a wooded area. It's not an open field with minimal, work to be done. It is fully wooded. And if you're willing to create an additional buffer for my property, which is, again, appreciated, reducing the number of homes would allow you to put a decent buffer there that I'm requesting, as well as give your community a better quality of living. They wouldn't be so crammed in and have so many houses in that development, so it would open up more area for you guys as well, and the people living there, especially for the price that you guys were considering it being that second home value. But that's it, that's all. I just wanted to take into effect that this is fully wooded. Look at the size of it compared to the existing lots, and please continue to take that into consideration. And thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you. Any further discussion, any comments, or?
I have something I would like to say. So after our last meeting, Kelsey and I have to sit in on an additional meeting with the administrator and the county attorney, where she wanted to highlight to us that our ordinance allows for us to take 60 days from public hearings to make a decision, and that we do not have to take action tonight. We are allowed to table it, move it to the next meeting if we decide there's more information that we would like to have, and allow them to bring us back in another meeting. So just as we continue through discussion, I would like to point out we do not have to take action tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. We can table it if we want to. If we don't take action,
Oh, that's right.
if we don't take action within 60
So for
days,
everyone. For the ones that were not.
it's automatically approved. You know that, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So, if there's a good reason to table it, then we
We
can.
wouldn't be tabling it, we just want to take action on it.
What additional information would you anticipate would be helpful that we don't currently have?
The traffic analysis indicated 879 trips in a day, which does trigger more traffic information than was presented to us in this packet.
But again, and we had this discussion in the last meeting, with respect to traffic analysis, ultimately, it's going to be the county engineer that's going to make the determination, not the planning commission, with respect to that topic. At least that was my understanding.
I would respectfully disagree that the ordinance says otherwise.
I understand.
My interpretation's along the lines of his stuff. I have to agree with him on that aspect. Like, it does not clearly define, I think, what the traffic study.
I just know that Ken said that staff has not even reached a full resolution on it, and I would not wish to proceed with the precedent of approving without that information until we are certain.
But again, I thought, and again, we had this discussion, and perhaps you can help us, but post action by this body, there are a lot of issues, including the traffic issue, that the technical staff has been delegated authority to address.
Yes,
And so-
after land use, it triggered the traffic study, they would still be required to do that traffic study. The county engineer would require that before giving any approvals.
And this is one of the smaller, lower levels of total trips than some of the others that we've looked at. Is that fair to say that? We're at 800 and what was it, Jessica?
I wouldn't call it a small one, 879 is what I believe I saw.
Is it that net positive at 869, or is that net total
Daily trips.
increase on 869? I don't think that was. Maybe I'm going crazy.
870 is what the engineer confirmed.
Daily trips.
Daily trips is what's written there.
So total.
So that includes the.
He's
say,
does it have a breakdown of what increased traffic factors was?
The minimum threshold for traffic study is 500, right?
And you're saying that, given that the threshold is exceeded, after action by this body, assuming it was positive, the county engineer would then commission that study to be done, and then
Yes.
assess what the implications of the results are.
So, the traffic study is not triggered at the time of planning commission, it's triggered after it's received approval. That is not. So the county engineer would then take a look at it based on the triggers. So since it does trigger a traffic study, the county engineer would require one.
And they've got approvals from the other utility and infrastructure providers. Blue Ridge, Southside Water.
That's not accurate, those are.
Do we have reason to believe they're not accurate?
They just usually passive in my opinion.
I thought I'd seen something, notes from the engineers to other information he was looking for. I can't find it.
Yeah, it's on the first page of the staff report, down at the bottom.
Oh, maybe it's still on my envelope here. Anyway, sorry.
Am I able to say something more about the school?
Logistically speaking, I'm looking at
Your chair.
county engineers' statements. Pendleton State maintained road, it needs encroachment permit from FCA. What grades the roads will have, the steeper and 12 to 14%, I'll be working for permit, blah, blah, blah. It's their intention the roads to be deeded over to the county. The last of the roads remain private, they will be required to be built to county standards. When in the process, if we were to approve it tonight, how do we know that this stuff,
That happens during preliminary plat. So the next step in the process.
Am I allowed to ask a question? How about the schools?
Yeah, we've already closed public comments.
Okay. I'm not used to this, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, any further questions or comments? Yes, we do that. So, would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll move approval with the condition that the 20-foot buffer be established as described by the applicant.
A second.
Okay, any further discussion about that?
I would still like to see it be 25 foot to match the rest of the buffers in our UDSO. I know that presents problems for them, but I think that provides consistency that is important in this instance. And I would like to be more specific than what they described, because we talked about some various things, but I do like the way you described preserving undisturbed and then adding additional native hardwood plantings to ensure the best opacity that you can that will safely thrive in that buffer. However that needs to be worded. I need to amend the motion.
So you would want to amend the motion to
25
to
feet.
have a minimum of 20 and ideally 25?
I think we need to be
No, we have to
specific.
specify.
So, and what about the hardwoods?
So just to be specific, to leave the buffer undisturbed and to have additional plantings, native hardwood plantings that will create the correct opacity according to our buffers.
You guys,
So in our buffer specifications, I believe we have the option of either augmenting, if,
Oh, that's a good word, I like that.
well, if the natural buffer actually meets the specs as it is, then I believe that we can prove that exactly as it is, or it can be augmented, or it can be taken down completely and replanted to the spec in our buffer definitions.
So then
Does
do we need to
everybody
be
agree with that?
So do we need to call it a class 6 buffer, undisturbed currently, and augmented if necessary? Does
Yeah,
that make sense?
I don't have it in front of me, is it class 6 to 25 foot?
Strongest, that's the strongest one.
So I would say for class 6, 25 foot will also require a structure.
That's right.
Okay,
Yeah,
never mind,
that's right.
minus the structure, sorry, thank you.
So classes 3 through 6 require structures.
Okay, let's flip the buffers. I shouldn't be doing that from memory, thank you. Alright, class 3.
Did the developer say that if they had the additional 5 feet, given the requirement for the setback from the road, it would effectively make it not possible to build on those lots, or did I not hear that correctly?
I didn't hear that.
With the additional 5 feet, from my understanding, with the 40-foot setbacks from the front of the house, correct me if I'm wrong anywhere here, because we have 40-foot setbacks from the road, they couldn't fit the lot depth in that parameter, correct? Is that,
But they can ask for variance.
and then take it to the Board of Appeals?
But also, you were referring not only to the depth of the house, but to a preferred rear yard size as well.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that right?
Yes, sir. So basically, if it was 25 feet, again, we're doing some napkin math here, so forgive me, but if it's 25 feet, it may end up with, say, a 10-foot backyard, as opposed to a 15, 20-foot backyard, whatever that looks like. Or we may restrict the house to where it's not one that's as deep. Or maybe, the 2-story that's 40 and a half feet wide. So we can restrict it that way. assuming we can get the pad size on there. Again, there's some assumptions on there, but the napkin math, yes, the backyard shortens, or to your point, go to the BZA, for a variance request on the 3 lots, potentially.
Okay, so you have some options with that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Because they are allowed to proceed without coming back in front of us if they do less lots. They just can't proceed without coming back in front of us if they go for more lots. So they can work it out without having to come back to us.
Right.
So can you get us that amended motion?
Since I'm super wordy, sorry.
Can you read us the amended motion?
I know it said, you said 25 feet with an undisturbed plus additional plantings. I think it would be, it would be more beneficial if you want to say a specific class buffer to where we can have an exact number of plantings that's required within that.
I agree.
That would be my recommendation.
How do you add plantings to an area that you're not going to disturb?
So an undisturbed buffer, you can replace a certain amount of plantings with existing vegetation, if it's already there and it meets the requirements. Does that make sense?
So you're basically augmenting it with, if some of the plants are, existing stuff are dead, for example, or, I'm not sure.
So if you have existing vegetation, you can, instead of tearing all of that existing vegetation out, you can use that as part of your buffer.
But if we're specifying that in that 25-foot buffer, that the existing vegetation remain undisturbed, then I'm not sure what would be the need for augmenting that with other planting.
I agree.
Well, if there was a, let's say there's a hole in the middle of it,
Right.
it's kind of bare and you can see all the way through or something like that. That's an example where a landscaping contractor would come in and he would take our buffer definition, which has very specific requirements for low growth vegetation, trees, etc., and then add in a sufficient quantity in those areas where it's too thin or where it doesn't conform to the buffer definition. Does that make sense?
And I do want to point out, I'm looking at a class 2 buffer inside of our system, and that does have a 20-foot option at 75% plant disturbance, or required plant materials. So that's
And aside from the concerns that were expressed, which are legitimate concerns, there is no requirement for a buffer. So we're essentially crafting one here potentially.
Okay, so
So what is the motion on the table?
There was a motion and a second to approve it with a 20-foot buffer.
So we then have to vote that down. Correct.
So you can amend the motion, that would require a second for an amendment.
But we have to hear the amended motion in its entirety.
She read what she caught. It wasn't coherent for her to figure out, so I don't technically know unless Jessica wants to repeat herself.
Can I suggest a class 2 buffer along the width of parcel, 8, 9, and 10, but let's use their parcel numericals of the actual residential houses instead, because these plot numbers can change. So say, I can't read it. Or do you know your parcel number offhand?
I do not know.
Are you the Timothy D. Powell?
Yes.
It's 5000-00-89-9094.
So what I would recommend is a class 2 buffer along that parcel numerical. I'm not going to make this, I'm not going to get it right. And then motion to approve on that standard.
And Ron, you can modify
Oh,
your,
he's made a motion. Can I withdraw my motion or is it too late?
This is modifying it.
no, you can withdraw it.
I'm not sure what we're going to proceed.
We'll
Sounds like
about
no.
it later.
I think procedurally.
I withdraw my motion and we can start over.
Yeah.
Start over.
There we go.
Well, I motion to approve with the parameters on the class 2 buffer along the parcel identified.
Yeah, I'll read the number.
Thank you.
What is it?
At 5007-00-89-9094.
So we're just doing the class 2 buffer at what percentage of required plant materials?
Doesn't that vary based off of what they decide to do at that point? If they classify any of those, so at a bare minimum it's a 10, but they can switch to the 75. It just depends on the plant density. Is that correct in my interpretation?
Because what I'm reading is 20% is 75%, or
20.
20 is 75%.
Are we looking for a 25 foot?
Well, I thought we said 20.
No, you're not listening.
I thought we said 20.
So
He was
I amended it so that we met one of the classes.
right, but that doesn't have 25 foot in there. It's got a 10, 20, 30, or 40.
Yeah, none of them have a 20. Going to class 3 requires a structure. So we were saying not a structure.
Okay, I don't want structure, but could we
Then
not?
we would need to amend what the classes are,
Right.
which I think is
So
a
it'd be a class-
USDO.
It'd be a class 2
Council.
buffer.
We're not getting into all that.
Yeah, that's what
We're just trying to
I think
figure out
class
what the
2 is,
difference
I think, a
is
reasonable
between the
statement.
buffers.
20 choice class 2.
Yeah, I don't know, can we establish a parameter on what class percentages they can use? I don't think.
I'm just looking at it, I wasn't trying to modify it, make sure I understood it.
Can we not, are we not allowed to say it? That we're asking for a 25 foot class 2 buffer?
We could, but that wasn't what Eric's motion was.
And
So, but we can, somebody else.
There's a motion on the table now.
Yeah.
It's
Eric
seconded.
has made a motion, it's been seconded.
And we're having discussion.
Yeah.
So we're gonna
And you can
discuss it until we.
All feel comfortable with uprooting this entire parcel and putting houses on it, you're absolutely right.
So any other comments, or does anyone else have any other thoughts about it? Okay, well, we've got a motion on the table.
Any problem with moving it to a 25 foot buffer, that's just me, I don't have any backup on that, that's fine.
I stand by 25.
I'm sorry?
I stand by 25.
So the 25 then be a separate, it wouldn't be one of our typical classes, it would have to be a unique,
It would just be a condition.
so it would be,
If you were to go away from the classes, you would need to specify exactly how many plantings you want within that 25-foot buffer. Well, they just do it by percentage of plant material here, we could just do it that way as well. If 20-foot buffer is 75% plant material, then 25-foot buffer is what X percentage of plant material?
We can,
That would be
we could go from
62 and a half.
There you go.
so it's basically less dense.
62.5% buffer
Cheaper
required.
buffer, but with less dense material.
The step in between what we have is a 75%.
Right, in that table, as the buffers are wider, they tend to get less dense.
Or because it's a condition we're making up, it doesn't necessarily have to meet that percentage, like the math, I get what Eric's saying. But you also could say, I want a 25-foot buffer with 100% plant material. So undisturbed.
So,
So we have a choice at this point, we don't have anything else to talk about, right? Either voting on the
Yeah, so we've got a motion on the table, we've got a second, we have to vote on that. And then if that fails, then we can make another motion and have another second.
I want to call the question.
Excuse me?
I want to call the question. I want us to vote.
Yes, and that's what I just said. So all in favor?
Of Eric's motion.
Yes. All opposed? Motion passes 4-3. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, under new business, we've got solar farms, proposed language. So Ron, you worked on that, right?
Right.
You want to give us a little presentation on what you did and
Sure.
how you did it?
Well, there is a statute in South Carolina, so if counties don't adopt an ordinance with respect to larger solar installations, then there's default language in the statute that prescribes minimum requirements. What I did was, I took that statute, and hopefully you all received this from Sydney, basically mirrored it, but then added slightly different. I set the threshold at 10 acres versus 13 acres. I also added language with respect to decommissioning. I mean, generally, the way these projects work is the developer will create a special purpose entity, which would be a limited liability company or something. They'd house this project inside that entity. And if you have a contractual promise from that entity that when we're done, we'll clean it up. If it's unsuccessful, they can just walk away from it because it'll be a separate corporate entity. And so with respect to the decommissioning part, here what I provided was the developer, the owner, and or the landowner would have to provide an irrevocable letter of credit equivalent to 125% of the anticipated decommissioning cost, so that irrespective of whether the project goes bust, the county would be protected for the costs associated with removing the facility. And the one open question, I know Sydney conveyed it to the county attorney, we have not heard. I believe that last year, the South Carolina legislature repealed a law which provided, with respect to extremely large projects, what's called primary jurisdiction rests with the Public Service Commission. And basically, it would divest counties from approval from a body like this. And I think that's now gone, but we still haven't heard back.
So she's prepared to address any comments and questions once it reaches council.
Okay. And so that, I've got a blank in there because I'm not sure what, I couldn't make a definitive determination about whether or not that is or is not the case. But if it is still the jurisdiction of the Public Service Commission, we would want to provide in an ordinance, if we recommend one to the county council, that with respect to those projects, we acknowledge we don't have authority, because that's what the state legislature has prescribed. But it sounds like our county attorney will address that if and when this thing proceeds.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd be happy to answer any questions.
We didn't have anything in there pertaining to already existing solar farms, correct?
I assume they'd be grandfathered.
That, yeah, I wonder if we need to write that out specifically.
So we do have an article for pre-existing non-conforming, and that's typically how things are done.
They're grandfathered.
Yes, it's a pre-existing non-conforming.
So as far as this is one of the questions I had as far as the decommissioning. Because we've all seen pictures of solar farms that wore out,
Right,
and they just leave them laying there. So that would be covered in this, for example, if it was no longer functional because.
yeah, I mean, this has a trigger if after 6 consecutive months it's not operable, then that triggers the obligation to decommission.
Which means it's gotta be demolished and cleaned up.
And it's gotta be done within 12 months.
What about, and forgive me for not having this in front of me, does it address anywhere in there, buffering as far as plantings, et cetera?
It does.
Um,
And it largely mirrors what the legislature has provided in this default statute.
Is there any description as far as height
Yes,
of that type of stuff?
it says the vegetation should be planted in 2 staggered rows at a spacing interval between 8 and 10 feet on center and reach at least 6 feet in height over a 3-year growing season and not less than 15 feet in height at maturity or 2 feet higher than the highest panel, whichever is greater. And it also has to include low-lying vegetation to fill gaps between taller vegetation.
Sounds like a buffer standard to me.
Yeah.
And that would be on all sides,
Yeah, the perimeter.
perimeter.
Is that taking into consideration, vegetation concerns, fire concerns?
Like vegetation that could be flammable.
Well, all vegetation.
I mean, no, but I mean, there's some that is more so than others.
Well, I'm thinking about the conduction of the solar energy off of the property.
Like off of a mirror almost.
Well, I mean, the energy just doesn't sit there. It has to be taken out in transmission lines.
Right.
And the transmission lines present a vegetation fire risk.
Right.
So when you're thinking about all this other vegetation, are you thinking about fire risk at the same time?
I didn't address that. Now presumably the operator would engage in vegetation management to ensure there was no risk of fire, but, you know, certainly
All I can say is Los Angeles.
right.
Did you, I think you did you specify in there as far as the reflective surface of these panels be? I mean, I know there's a lot of different wraps, if you will, that you can put on these things to reduce
Yeah, it says they have
reflectivity.
to be designed with anti-reflective coating to minimize glare.
Is there any way to specify a level on that as opposed to it being kind of open-ended?
Yeah, well, if I understand it correctly, if this ordinance was passed, a project would have to come to this body, and then it would proceed through the
It
planning
would
staff.
have to be added to Article 12. So if, I don't know exactly where they would want to put the solar farm regulations.
Right,
It could be in Article 3. If it's in Article 3, it'll also go in Article 12, which states that it has to go.
right, but subsequent to that, with respect to things like Mike just described,
It would follow the same process.
so the technical staff would also weigh in at the county, and I don't know who that would be for a project like this, with respect to those concerns. But I mean, this was, I just sort of made this up, so no private authorship here. Anybody's got suggestions, please make them.
This recommendation as well, which they probably will do.
I'm sure get more specifications required, right? Like, I'm trying to see if there's like any standard for like reflective surface components.
Right.
I think we vary into something that, you know, they'll hash out a little bit. Because a lot of times you've got to be careful with like requiring specific materials.
Because
These
it'll
things-
change over time. because
It'll change over time, and then, or, you know, you can't give priority governance to any specific company either, right? That's the other factor you have to consider, because if we say that it needs to meet XYZ standard, and the only company that meets XYZ standard is a single integrator.
There are standards for glare coefficient. Window manufacturers are required to publish those for windows. There's HOAs that require limited amounts of glare from windows that get installed in homes that are built, et cetera. So that does exist. It's a question of whether or not the county council wants to get that from us, or whether the county attorney is going to apply that. Or
Well, the problem with, I would foresee if we prescribe a specific standard, I mean, this thing will endure for some period of time, those standards change over time. But maybe be a minimum standard.
So, what happens with this? What do we do?
So this will have to go on, an agenda in the future to get public hearing. And then you would vote on your recommendation, for council.
And the recommendation would be the votage, and then presumably that would go into chapter 12, and then those challenges, those solar farms would come to us to ensure that they met the standards.
But only after county council approves the language first.
Yes.
Okay,
So we're making a recommendation that they would take, and then they would have that on the agenda at a meeting.
got it.
They discuss it, review it, and I think Kelsey just pointed out that on, a lot of occasions, the county council has to change what we're doing. So, but
We don't have a current moratorium in place though, correct?
We do.
Oh, for solar?
yes,
Okay, and when does that expire?
It doesn't.
Oh,
It expires in August 15th. Not unless we extend it, it's not a technical expiration.
So is our decision here to forward this language as it stands to the county council? Is that what we're trying
we can make the decision, or we can continue it and continue to discuss it and look at modifying any part of it if we wish. It just depends on what this commission will do.
Did I hear you say, Cindy, that in order to make a recommendation, it would have to be explicitly called out on the agenda? So we couldn't act on it tonight?
Tonight, no. So it would have to be on a future agenda, whether that's a special call meeting or the next scheduled planning session.
So when it asks for it to be put on the agenda, why didn't we do it?
It's put for discussion. So this needs a public hearing, a text amendment to the USO. That requires 15 days legal notice. By the time you requested it to be put on the agenda for a public hearing, that was past the time.
Well, first of all, I requested it at the last meeting that we had in, what month are we, May? And you never reached out to me before you published it. It was clear we were talking about these items, but that's okay. So we won't be making any recommendations to send anything up to council tonight.
It can be put on a subsequent agenda.
so can we get this added? to
So
next
why
month's
don't
agenda?
we add this, be sure that we add this for next month, as long as that fits in to the timeframe that the council expects to see from us. I haven't heard any communication from them as to the specific timeline.
But to your point, if it does expire or extend, it's.
When do they want a decision from us?
They expected it this time. That's okay, we'll just have to extend it.
You can call a special meeting.
Yes, I know. In the middle of the summer,
Right before July 4th.
right?
Yeah.
So, okay, so any further comments or questions, or maybe proposed modifications to the work that Ron has done here?
And I know we're subject to an open door law or sunshine law or whatever, but I suppose if an individual commissioner has a comment, it's not inappropriate if they convey it to another commissioner.
As long as you don't make a
quorum.
Right. So I guess I would say, if anyone, if I could suggest, if you, after looking at this, if you have additional thoughts or suggestions, let me know. And I can incorporate it into a new draft, which I'll send to Sydney and then she can distribute.
And we just need to have that to you by
50
15
days
days
prior to
prior.
the next meeting.
which
So,
think is the
I-
6th. Or we-
So the legal notice I send to, the courier Friday, so this Friday. So
But
that-
the document
the
itself,
documents don't have to come,
Just the item.
just the agenda.
Okay.
I would like to have everything that's going to be within a packet by next Wednesday, if that's possible.
so I think it's reasonable to say that if we get our revisions back to you by Friday,
Sure.
and does that seem
Yeah,
very reasonable?
I'm
Okay.
tired.
So,
Well, I don't have that benefit.
let me say something.
Yeah.
This is-
Yeah.
Already.
So she has received what? This proposal, yes.
So if we have any comments or changes or suggestions, that's going to change what she's got.
Hence why she said that once she has a recommendation, she'll give her formal recommendations to council and changes. Just because this is proposed, there's nothing that's been formally recommended to council, so her opinions may or may not change.
Okay, so sequence of this, feedback to Ron. Ron provides any amended language to the attorney, president or hands. We discuss it in July.
So she will get it once it's voted and recommended by you all.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to vote.
I'll give a red line copy to Sydney that shows any changes you all have to this version. And then Sydney, I presume, it's appropriate for you to circulate it to the commission. And I put a note on there whose comments or what. That's helpful.
It'll just be an action item for next one, right? At the end of the day, for us to recommend something.
So do we need to do anything to make it clear that we want this on the agenda?
It's going to be on the agenda.
No, we don't have to vote on that. It's not a vote. Okay, so the next item is the hotel ordinance. And we have some information on that. Mike, did you work on that?
No, but what I did do is I had ordered information that I know the council has seen that has I feel like a more inclusive definition of what is commercial lodging than what we were presented in our email. And I just.
Are you talking about this right here?
That's what we had got, but then.
So they provide us with the definition, but then,
There were two,
oh, yeah, because I sent you with the two definitions and then,
not the one that you sent, there was, this is
This is the-
separate.
yeah, I know, I
This is
saw it.
what was agreed upon before this came back around.
the Pickens County zoning ordinance, what? This document?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
Okay.
So my point is that we know that the county, especially the council, is in the middle of a lot of discussion about this and whether it be related to a lake overlay or Highway 8 or whatever. I just think that it's important that we come up with a definition that is consistent for everyone and not have more than one definition on what is a commercial lodging, because we all know lawyers can be very slick. And so, well, you didn't say I couldn't do it if I'm left-handed and more on a Tuesday. Okay. And so I just felt like that, just first look, and I guess again, this is not on the agenda, so we're not officially looking at anything. My recommendation was that we, amongst ourselves, I don't know who starts the process, okay? And who finishes the process, but I just felt like that what we were presented was a much more limited just right off the bat, I think a couple of us said timeshares, for example, was not included in that, it's included in this one.
Right, so what we've done is we've started with little committees. 2 people, 3 people, some committees are 1 person. And that's the genesis of, the language, the ideas that go behind it. Then we come in, we do it in a workshop format, or we do it in a meeting format like this, and review whatever's been done. And we add, we subtract, until we get to a place where everybody's relatively comfortable and there's some level of consensus. And then, as we've just heard, it has to go on the agenda as an agenda item in order to review it and then vote on it. So right now, did anyone else work with you on the solar? No.
Well, the former commissioner Tripp had started on it, and then when he departed, I wrote this.
Okay. And then I think Kelsey has some information for us tonight on a Highway 80 overlay.
Still working on it. I'm just trying to figure out the roads and bridges aspect of it as well. And I'll provide that documentation. But by Friday is our deadline to get all this information out to each other, so I'll send that over.
Okay.
So can you explain what is?
Yeah, so this is the Easley corridor on the Pickens County side in between the city of Easley and Anderson County line. 2 miles on either side is historically been rural farm territory until the high school, Easley High School, moved to that side of town. Sewer infrastructure followed, a lot of high density followed behind that, and it's put a lot of strain on these, decades and generational family-run farms. Infrastructure has declined, quality of life has declined. Which is the reason that I sit in this chair today, because Highway 8 is why I'm here. This is where I started 2 years ago, was on this project. When we started revising the UDSO, we felt strongly that those revisions would help slow down high density. Coming out of that moratorium, we realized that it did not. It's not slowing anybody from coming here in large volumes in high density areas. So that area that I just prefaced is still such a targeted area because of the sewer capacity, the school, just a popular area, destination, right? So what we decided to come up with, and these are conversations that I've had with county council for, gosh, what it feels like almost a year, was that an overlay would justify adding some higher level restrictions to that area to try to provide, again, those farmers some relief to that side of town. So really the overlay is more about trying to figure out how infrastructure remains or evolves and how to limit some of the higher density developments in that area, wider setbacks, higher setbacks from waters. There's a lot of watersheds in this little 4 miles that I'm drafting up language for. So really just kind of preserving that rural area that's left and remains, and again, just giving those residents more relief is the overall genesis of it.
Thank you.
Okay, so you're gonna send something out that city will distribute to the rest of us, and then we'll be able to take a look at it and comment. That sounds good. I just wanted to make sure that everybody was clear on how the commenting is supposed to work too. If there's more than 3 of us on an email, on a phone call, in a room together, that constitutes a quorum. And if we have a quorum, then we have to conform to state law relative to meeting notification requirements and all the other things that are related to that. So we can send things to Sydney, and then she can turn around and distribute it to the commission. but we're not supposed to be conducting a discussion through an email with all of us on the same thread. That's a violation of state law, and I know everybody's pretty new, so we just have to understand that that's how it works. So when in doubt, send it to Sydney, and then she'll do the appropriate thing with it, and that way it keeps us out of trouble.
All right, then if that's the case, back on this commercial lodging facilities thing, what I would like to do, and if I'm doing this correctly, is, you know, the document I'm holding in front of me now, which has got like 11 sections, which my understanding is this is the same thing that's in front of the council to be considering also. So what I would like to do is kind of do the same thing Ron's doing. I'd like to be sure that all of y'all have it. And then are they allowed to send it to me? Where I could put their suggestions in here, or?
So you can speak to up to 3 people, up to 2 people, 3 people total at a time.
But if we're doing individual emails,
So you can do that.
so each individual could email me directly, and then I could respond back to them directly, to say thank you for that input, et cetera.
That's right, that's fine.
Because what I would like to see is if we can come up with something, let's say, just for example, let's say that we look at this and we like it as is, with no modifications whatsoever. I think it would be helpful for us to be able to send that along to the council and say, we have reviewed this document and we like it.
So we can put it on the agenda for next meeting, and then we can also vote to send it to the council if everybody's satisfied with it at that point.
I'm sorry, what document is it that you have?
It's called Pickens County Zoning Ordinance Commercial Lodging Facilities.
So Sydney,
It's specifically
put
related
this on
to
the agenda
commercial lodging
for
Commercial
definitions,
yeah, for next meeting.
purpose, intent,
Do you want all
conditional use,
moratoriums
minimum
on it?
parcel size. It's a very extensive document.
That would be,
It's being considered.
That would be solar farms, commercial lodging, highway corridor.
Those three,
Yes.
correct. That'd be great.
So I can send it to Sydney,
Sydney
and she can forward it to all y'all. And then what I'm suggesting is that if you've got comments on things you would like to add to it, amend it, to make you more comfortable with it, you could email those directly to me, not to everyone. And then I would be able to redline it just like Ron's doing. And then I'd be able to send that back to you for us to have on that agenda.
Yes, I would say that, so Kelsey has previously done committees, where it's groups of 2 or 3 commissioners, and then those commissioners work on a specific item, and then they bring back to the meeting, and then everybody discusses that with a forum. So those small groups work on something, and then they bring it to the whole, or you can send it to me, and then I can forward that information. But I would say that would probably be the best way to do it, is have committees of small groups working on different items.
I'd be interested in just seeing the document that the county council is considering.
I don't know at this point if it's officially like on their agenda per se. I just know that several of the county council members have this thing documented for consideration.
The whole reason that commercial lodging is a subject is because of the lake. You're creating the lake area. Who's creating the lake area?
So staff is working on that. When is that? What's the timeline on that? Second reading, it's coming up soon. It may be next week. I'm not really sure.
And that's gone directly to the council, then, correct? And the first one that you're doing is Hartwell, is that right?
It's Kiwi and Jocassee.
Excuse me?
Anderson is Hartwell.
Kiwi and Jocassee.
Okay. Those two.
So, then I guess we're back up. Is there any need there any need for us to be making any recommendations about this definition at all? I mean, that's why I was wondering why it was sent to us, because if the council is looking at the same thing, do we need to even be
For
weighing in on
commercial
this?
lodging?
Yeah.
Yeah, how much, I'm sorry to interrupt, how much of commercial lodging is in the lake overlay? Did that end up
So,
being kind of the?
We're still proposing language, we're still working on language. Our biggest reasoning for the lake overlay is to protect water quality. So it's a water quality standpoint. It's not because of a commercial lodging, it's water quality. And maintaining that water quality.
Very good timing. Maybe that's the potential hotel that was going up there, but yeah.
So the county council still wants to hear from us relative to commercial lodging.
It's two separate things.
Right.
It's two separate ideas and discussions.
Okay, so we'll continue to work on that, and we'll come up with a recommendation next week.
I can't remember anymore. And photographic memory is born without film, but is there a draft of a hotel ordinance that we looked at before? I can't even remember.
So, Jennifer proposed a document. She then resigned from planning commission, so then we had the workshop.
Right.
And then where I believe we left off was a definition and added to Article 12.
Just a definition, as opposed to a separate ordinance. Okay,
Because of the overlay conversation.
okay. Yeah,
Became a big factor.
Right.
Nobody really knew who was doing what.
right.
So then we reduced the conversation on commercial lodging, thinking that the proponent of the lake overlay was not water quality, but more based off commercial lodging. But it sounds like the overlay is moving in a different direction now, and that this will be completely separate documents. So this will be really important to, as a whole, Pickens County, figure out how commercial lodging works. But specifically, because that's such a sore subject up at the lake communities, is there any separate language that needs to be added for
That's
certain districts?
That's what I'm thinking, this definition, because it could be talking about, you know, Highway 8, it could be talking about any other place in the county. I just feel like that we should have a definition for what this thing is that's consistent, no matter what you're looking at, whether it's a lake overlay, whether it's a Highway 8 overlay, whether it's out in the middle of 2,000 acres. I just think we ought to have a definition that's consistent. You know, for example, you can say, well, we're not gonna allow any trucks. Okay? There's a lot of different kinds of trucks.
Right.
Talking pickup trucks, dump trucks, concrete trucks, semi-trucks, okay? So I think we need something that is, you know, consistent, and if this wording, to my knowledge, is kind of what's in front of, the council at this point. I think it would be helpful for them if they had our input going, we like this, or we like this, but, or we think we like this, and add something for their consideration, so that hopefully we come up with a definition that is consistent across the county, is what I'm looking for.
Yeah, that's my understanding that that's what county council wants. So if we can deliver something to them that feels like a good, strong, comprehensive definition, they might like that. They'll probably change it and make modifications to it, but we give them the best thing that we can give them and move on from there.
So then are we suggesting that Ron and I are a committee, we're working on this, or? I don't know.
So Ron has already done a lot of work on the solar, but Eric is interested.
Yeah, I can help with that.
Okay.
And if you want to pair it up with me and we do editing on that aspect, I think that's perfectly fine. I think the same rules apply. Let's have everything back to us by Friday so that we can get it to the staff by Wednesday.
So then,
great.
I'm allowed to copy him directly, and we're allowed to discuss this between the two of us, and we're not violating the Supreme Court
So
law.
quorum is 4.
As long as as long as it's just you and me, or, you know, like, as I said, kind of like when the email that I sent, as long as we're emailing no more than 2 other individuals. 3 or less, right? So like, if you're sending an email, you can send it to Mike and myself, but if you throw in Jessica, it qualifies as 4.
Okay, this, now we're in trouble. For clarification purposes, I thought, and again, Peter said the same thing, that if we were having a discussion on it, as opposed to, I send an email to everyone, and I'm not asking for any responses, and no one's replying to all, I'm simply sending them information, and we're not engaging with.
If you send it to them individually, it's fine, but if you send it to them all in one email, that qualifies as you communicating with all of us.
Okay.
I believe the guideline is if you want us all to receive something, always send it to Sydney and let her
Right.
send it out to us. That's the
Or just send a
simplest
separate, 7 separate emails.
way. Or that.
Yep.
Well, but I gotta say, I like your recommendation, Jessica, that it goes to
Just
staff.
go send it.
Okay.
For FOIA purposes.
I do agree.
No, that'll work, I can do that, but right now,
But right now, you and I
we're
can work
legal,
on
for
something.
me and him to
Right.
conspire and come up with all types of
Absolutely.
stuff.
Some crazy language.
And that would be very helpful too, if you make some progress with it, so by the time we get to the next meeting, we've got something that looks like a finished product.
Okay.
You know, at that point, maybe we have a language that we can vote on and then send it to council. They're pretty anxious, as I understand. So the more we can do with that, the better.
Okay.
Kelsey, did you want to say anything else about Highway 8, or did that pretty much cover it? Okay.
I have a total diversion, or making new topics.
It's new business.
Okay.
So,
Just, if I am the only one, that is super fine. I just wanted to float a thought. So since we have done away with our workshop time that we used to do from 6 to 6:30, and we are now starting at 6:30, I know I think a little better earlier in the, I'm not a nighttime person, I'm an early bed, early to rise, and if I'm the only one, like I said, it's super fine, but do we want to consider starting at 6 instead of 6:30? I believe that is a call you get to make.
yeah, I would tend to defer to people who work full-time. So,
And again, that's why
Eric, does that work for you or not?
I think I can probably make 6 swing, so.
I work full time.
Oh, I'm
Sorry,
sorry.
sorry, Eric, that's what I got as well.
He mentioned it.
Let me think about it.
I mean, you were talking about how long your commute was, so.
I'm with you. Put me to bed.
Yeah, and I just, I had an extra coat this afternoon and I'm pushing, I'm here for it.
I
will
saw
do if
a
I'm the
yawn.
only one.
I saw a yawn.
So Aaron, that works for you?
Works great.
Okay,
Does that work for staff? I guess that's another question.
yeah, that's another important question.
Right. We're here from 8 a.m. until it ends. So
Y'all would appreciate it earlier, is what I'm hearing.
that would have to be updated in the bylaws.
what's the procedure for that?
So you would have to come with written documentation, and then at the next meeting, I believe is whenever you would vote on that written documentation.
Who needs to write it?
So it'll be in, not
So-
next meeting, but the meeting after that we can vote on it, which would mean that we
Yeah,
can
so
take it
you would
forward.
you would propose official language next meeting and say, I wanna update the bylaws to this, the
Sue,
6 p.m.
could you circulate the bylaws to the commission, please?
And then, at the next meeting, you would then vote on that written language.
So then do you need to put it on next month's?
So the bylaws are planning commission, so public hearings not required for bylaws. That's your rules and regulations and procedures that you all create.
So it doesn't have to be on the agenda.
So if you wanna propose language, that wouldn't have to go on the agenda, we can discuss it. And then at the next meeting, it would need to be an action item, so you can vote on it.
So we have to discuss it and vote on it in 2 separate meetings, that's what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay. And is there any reason, so what would you consider to be standard procedure on that for bylaw changes? Because I haven't been involved in that. So is. would it
I've
be
never
put-
seen
would
a
it be
bylaw change.
Would it be put it on the agenda just so we have it there for all
If-
of us?
If you would like for me to put it on next month's agenda, that we're gonna be discussing a bylaw change, I can.
Okay.
And if we bring the proposed language at that time,
Which is strike out the zero.
Zero meeting at six.
Oh, yes.
I don't wanna be at 3:30.
Okay.
So, and this is exactly the wording from the bylaws for amendment. They may be amended at any regular meeting of the planning commission by a 2/3 vote of the entire commission, provided that the amendment has been submitted in writing at the previous regular meeting of the commission. So, next commission meeting, it needs to be in writing, and then the next one, it would need to get a 2/3 vote.
Got it. Thank you.
So do we need to put it on the agenda for next meeting in order to?
It doesn't have to be on the agenda.
We just have to submit it.
Yeah, we just have to submit it. So, Aaron, you have to take it upon yourself to cross out the three and add a zero.
Should be good provisions.
Yeah,
Okay.
certainly it's convenient for us. I mean, I want to make sure that
Oh, yeah, and it's fine for me too. I don't have a problem with it.
that's good for you guys.
Everybody else seems to have flexible schedules, so that's great. Any other items under new business? Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn? So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you very much.